In this movie, I want to talk about using cascading style sheets, or CSS, to format elements on your web pages. Now, this is a pretty immense topic that can warrant several of its own training titles detailing how to create and write your own styles in the CSS language. And we do have several CSS training titles on the lynda.com online training library you can check out if you want to learn how to write cascading style sheets. But because Contribute completely hides your page's code from you, essentially making it impossible for you to write your own CSS, there's really no need for you to learn it here. Instead, let's talk about the benefits that CSS bring to a website and how they work with Contribute. The HTML styles we looked at in the previous movie are fine, but they're pretty limited in terms of being able to apply the same styles to multiple pages. From the point of view of the site designer, cascading style sheets offer so much more control in that changing a style changes all instances of that style within a site. Basically, the way it works is that the site designer creates an external style sheet containing all the information describing how things like body text, heading, tables, and so on should look and behave. For example, maybe the style sheet has a rule saying that all heading 1 paragraphs should be in the Verdana font and in red. The style sheet is then linked to all the pages the designer wants it to affect. All pages linked to the style sheet will display any heading 1 paragraphs as red and in Verdana. After that, just changing a style on the external style sheet changes the appearance of the content on all of the linked pages. For example, if the designer changes his mind and decides that instead of Verdana, he wants to use, say, Georgia as the font, he just has to change that information on the style sheet, and Georgia will be displayed on all of the linked pages. Without CSS, the designer could still format the headings on each page as red and Verdana, but that means that he would have to open each individual page later on if he wanted to change the format to something else. With CSS, all you have to do is change one style sheet. CSS can specifically help a site designer who is working with Contribute users in that the designer can ask the Contribute site administrator to disable the use of anything other than CSS styles, which ensures that Contribute users can't accidentally mess up the site by applying HTML styles to pages. So if you're working with a page that's linked to a cascading style sheet, you'll see all the styles associated with this page listed in the Styles menu here. On this page, I see the styles called Heading 1 and Heading 2. Now, we saw Heading 1 and Heading 2 in the previous movie, but here on this page, they look different because the style sheet for this page has been set up to display any text marked as Heading 1 or 2 in the way that you see here. We can see Heading 1 is bigger in this darker green, and it looks like it has a serif font applied to it. And Heading 2 is in sort of a lighter, paler green, and it's got a sans serif font applied to it. Essentially, this is the heading of our page and the subheading of our page. If I have my cursor in any of these styled areas and I choose a different style other than Heading 1 or Heading 2, for instance, if I just go back to normal, you can see that removes that style formatting from the text and it goes back to that default normal appearance. Or I can select it again to change it back. So it's a very simple matter of selecting the styles that the designer's created from the Styles menu here. So that's pretty much the limit of how you can work with pre-built external style sheets in Contribute. You can only select among the CSS styles built by the page designer. But it's a great way to make sure your pages maintain a consistent look. For example, if I were building a new page and I wanted to use the page I'm looking at here to start me off, I could just delete everything here just by selecting it, hitting delete. If I click outside that, we'll see the table collapse a little bit so I can work with it. And I could start typing new text like our locations, and maybe we're just around the corner will be the subheading. And then I could just start typing regular text. And now I can quickly make this page start looking like the other pages on my site by applying the styles to my headings and subheadings. So I can just click in our locations, come up here, choose Heading 1, click in just around the corner, Heading 2. You can see Heading 2 adds this little box bullet right there as well. And then just continue typing text down here and maybe add an image, and this page will look just like all the other pages because I was able to select the styles that the page designer had created right from the Styles menu here. Now, as a Contribute user, you don't have the ability to create external style sheets that affect multiple pages at once, but you can create internal styles for the page you're currently working on. And we actually did this in the previous movie, but I just didn't point it out at the time. I'm going to switch over to the plain text file that I was working with in the previous movie, and I've already removed the formatting that I had previously applied so I could show you how this works on an unstyled document. So as you style text on your page with the buttons and menus in the toolbar, Contribute automatically creates internal styles for you. So for instance, if I come in here and select green tea and change that to, say, Verdana, notice that as soon as I made that change, Contribute automatically created a style called Style 1, and notice that it's styled in the Verdana style and looks pretty much the same way that the green T text looks down here. So now I can use this and select Style 1 for any text that I want to turn into Verdana, which is a little silly right now because I can select Verdana right from the font menu here. But for each change I make to this text, Contribute is going to note that change and add it to the style. So if I come and select this text again, and let's say I come in here and make it green, make it a darker green, notice that the style up here has now turned green as well. Maybe I'll make it bold. That style is turned bold. And maybe I'll just make that a little bit smaller, size 13. And you can see that the style continuously updates itself based on the changes I'm making. This is Contribute's way of trying to help you be more consistent and to make things easier for you. Now, since I have two other T types on this page, and I want them to have the same look as this green T, instead of having to select them one at a time and manually select Verdana, green, bold, and the size 13, I just need to select the text and just choose the style that Contribute created for me. Just like so, and just like so. And there it is. It's that easy. So Contribute creates new styles anytime I start editing text. So for instance, if I had text here that I wanted to be italicized, and let's say I make it red, as soon as I make it red, you can see that style now appears there and reflects the appearance of that text. So again, I can just come in here and select other text that I want to have red and italicized and select that as a style. Again, very easy to do. Now, it's nice that Contribute shows you exactly what each of these styles looks like, but it would be a little bit better if they had more descriptive names instead of Style 1 and Style 2, because you can imagine as you start styling text on this page, you could have Style 3, 4, 10, 12, and so on. So what you can do is come down here to the bottom of the menu and choose Rename Style. And you can choose the style that you want to rename. And it's good to give your styles good descriptive names so that you'll remember what these styles were created for. And especially if you're working with somebody else on the site, they'll know what the styles were created for. So I'll call this T names. And Contribute actually tells me that you can't have spaces in the name, so I'll click on OK. And I'll just use an underscore for the space. And I'm actually going to get rid of the capital T. It's just a good habit to get into to use lowercase letters. Click on OK. And notice now I have a style called T names. I can do the same for Style 2. And I'm going to call this definitions because I'm using it for terms that I've defined. Like so. And now we have styles called definitions and T names. Notice at the bottom of this menu that you can also delete styles if your style menu is getting a bit cluttered with styles that you might not be using. Just be aware that deleting a style removes that styling from any text that it was affecting. So if I get rid of the definition style and say yes, notice that there's no more red italicized text on my page. So that's the gist of how you work with cascading style sheets and Contribute. Again, you don't get nearly the control over making the actual style sheets that you do in programs like Dreamweaver, but the nice thing is that you do get full access to all the styles created by the site designer so you can easily apply them to the pages you're editing. And as CSS becomes more and more popular as the way to style and lay out pages, you'll find yourself running across CS styles more and more in Contribute. And yes, you can use CSS not only to format text, but to actually determine where things appear on pages. You can't do that in Contribute, but don't be surprised if things move around on your page when you're working with styles that the site designer created.